I didn't know where the episode was going, so I almost kind of like assumed like something was weird about her to begin with. Like she
Mm,
had like foresight, or she knew maybe like
yeah.
she was a time person too. You
Well,
know what I mean?
you have that episode of Enterprise where they get weird scans of this planet, and they're like, "There's stuff on this planet that they doesn't correlate with the civilization on it." And Archer's like, and T'Pol is like, "No, somebody's messing with the planet. We need to see what's contaminating it." And they go down and they find that shopkeeper, and he's an alien.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Remember that?
So it's like that. It's like you're not off track of thinking maybe Edith Keeler is like a weird alien,
Yeah,
and
you
like
get this
that's
weird vibe. Yeah.
yeah.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Well, to commemorate the absence tonight, my favorite character, Scotty, I will be drinking a Scottish Scotch. Where's the camera?
It's
There's
gone
there
for
it is. Mm.
Hmm.
Ah, that's to you, Scotty. Oh, Captain, you just left? I've seen so much hatred in past days. I had to kill the woman I love just so
Yeah.
the Nazis wouldn't win.
I have a beautiful Edith Keeler.
Risk. Risk is our business. Out there. That way.
My God. What happened?
Starfleet was founded to seek out new life. Well, there it sits.
Rock and roll. 6.
We're not afraid of diversity. We don't persecute it, we embrace it.
At least I won't die alone.
Join our Federation of Planets and reach for the stars.
Those were the days.
Welcome back to another Trek review. Where this week we're talking about another Star Trek: The Original Series episode, and this episode is entitled "The City on the Edge of Forever." It originally aired April 6th, 1967. It is the 28th episode released, and it is also the 28th episode produced. It was
So
written
we're
by
finally caught up.
finally got it was written by Harlan Ellison and directed by Joseph Pevney, who had done, I believe, Arena, The Devil in the Dark. So the synopsis for the episode, The City on the Edge of Forever, is Kirk and Spock go back in time to save McCoy and their own universe.
Yeah, because they ruined it in the first place.
But before we get into the teaser and talk about the episode, let's ask Caleb what he thought of the episode.
Absolutely rubbish. uh, so yeah, I need to stop reading the Paramount does this fun thing where they show you the episode and then they say, "Oh, hey, so here's everything that happens in this episode."
Oh, I see.
Like in detail, So
Oh, so like on the
so I
side, it's
yeah, so I need
okay.
to stop reading them. It's not, it doesn't like ruin anything. Obviously, the show is really old, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
But it's just one of those funny things where they're like, "Oh, so they need to time." It's basically what you just said. Like they go into the past to save their own future, and you're like, "Oh, okay, got it."
Yeah.
But like, obviously, that's a lot better if you don't know what's
Like
going to
where
happen.
it's even gonna go, right?
But the thing is, too, is like for me, it's old Star Trek, so you don't necessarily, you know, like the idea of them time traveling through like this entity on this planet was a cool concept.
Right.
I'm so familiar with
Yeah.
like temporal
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff that like this is just why is this thing here? Who knows? Why does it do this? Doesn't matter.
Right. Right.
Why? Why is Bones crazy? Why does he get like super crazy from that like pain medicine? I don't know.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yep.
But
Now
yeah,
you
it was good.
now,
It's a cool episode. It's a fun episode. I like the time travel aspect. I like seeing Kirk and Spock blend in. I've always seen pictures of Spock with the
Spock.
beanie to like cover his
Yeah.
ears and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I really like the idea of like them being hobos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though they're like, from the future and they're very advanced. It's very funny like that.
Juxtaposition.
And the couple times I really laughed was when they're sitting there eating in the soup kitchen and that bum next to him's like,
Like, yeah, you hear
like,
this?
it's not free. It's not free. You gotta listen to this whack job. And she says something, and they're like, wow, how does she know this? And he's like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
loved it.
Yeah. It was good. It was really good.
Very funny.
It's probably in the top 5 most like famous original series episodes of like all time.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like everybody pretty much knows about. I don't know if they know about Edith Keeler, but they definitely know like them going back in time and the whole like the arch, like the donut archway thing, and it's like
Yep.
they know all that stuff and the time travel, and to the point that like even in Avengers Endgame when Ant-Man's like they reference so much. I want to say
Yeah.
even in, I could be 100% wrong. It's in an X-Men movie too. I think it's in Days of Future Past. Like Beast is watching an episode of Star Trek, and I think it's this episode.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into the teaser, but let's have the computer do it this time. Computer?
In orbit around an unexplored planet, the USS Enterprise is on red alert as it passes through violent time distortions surrounding the planet. As the ship plots its orbit, Montgomery Scott warns that the control circuits are threatening to overload. No sooner does Captain Kirk acknowledge the report, the helm console on the bridge explodes, and Lieutenant Sulu is injured. Scott takes the helm as Dr. McCoy is called to the bridge for emergency first aid. Scott questions if the ship should break orbit, but Spock advises against it. The ship is literally passing through ripples in time, and it is of great scientific importance that they remain and investigate. Kirk agrees and orders Uhura to broadcast to Starfleet Command his past week's log entries, detailing the unusual readings on the instruments that has diverted the Enterprise to this planet. McCoy arrives and diagnoses Sulu with a heart flutter. He prepares a hypo of cortisone, warned by Kirk that it is tricky stuff. Fortunately, the 2 drops administered by McCoy successfully revives Sulu. Scott reports that the Enterprise is nearly clear of the time ripples, which Spock confirms with one heavy displacement directly ahead. The Enterprise shudders violently as it collides with it, causing Dr. McCoy to slip on the helm console and inject the loaded hypo spray into his abdomen, emptying all its contents into his bloodstream. Kirk and Spock rush to his aid, but McCoy darts up in a panic, raving and screaming about killers and assassins. McCoy breaks free from the concerned bridge crew and flees to the bridge via the turbolift. Kirk orders a security alert.
Yeah, so the episode starts off like really like interesting where they're doing like time fluctuations and stuff on the ship, and it reminded me of the when they would go through like the bad part of space in Enterprise, and the ship would all be like warping like crazy,
Yeah.
It's kind of what it reminded me of. Then that whole like hypospray thing happens.
I'm sure he didn't see that coming.
No. No, because the plot summary is like, oh, they have to go back in time. And then like immediately he falls out on that thing and injects all of it. You're like, oh, this is really bad, like immediately. It's funny how Kirk is like, oh, that stuff's pretty potent. Are you sure you should be doing it. And then he like immediately injects
Like
him, and he's like,
yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, are you questioning the medical advice?" Like, no, no,
No, never, never.
no, I wouldn't be doing that. That's crazy.
McCoy getting it, and he's just like,
Yeah, I like that this stuff is so. You're in this future where medicine is like perfect, and
yeah,
this stuff is like the tiny little bit of it is it's basically like a like high dose of like morphine, and you're
yeah,
like, oh yeah, I feel so much better like immediately.
right,
But if you get any more than that, you're just like, you're
right.
insane. You go insane from it.
Well,
Like that's probably something you should fix.
maybe you control a little bit better. Yeah,
You might want to look into that.
I feel like there should also be a child safety lock on those hypo sprays. Like you pull this thing
Hmm.
and then press this thing. Like whatever, twist it 90
No,
degrees and then press in.
it's the future. There's no junkies or such thing as like, people who are looking
That's
for like a
true.
fix or
That's
anything.
true. And your children are so well educated they would never eat Tide Pods in the future.
No, no, they know that it's bad for them. They're not going to eat that. No, nobody in the future needs to get like their kicks or anything. It's all just everybody's just normal,
Just
well-behaved
normal.
people in
Very
society.
normal. Very, very normal. I love that killers, murderers, assassins.
Yeah,
That was great. Oh man.
they still exist. Yeah.
Wow, yeah.
I kept thinking too, I was like, did they not like have anything else for him to say? Like, like, because like the whole episode, he just keeps repeating that like
Yeah.
phrase.
I mean, if you thought everyone around you was trying to kill you, that's all you'd shout too.
Yeah. Mara.
You wouldn't yell like "help me" or
Mm-mm.
like
They're
"where
coming.
am I?"
They're coming.
Don't touch me! Don't. Yeah, right.
Captain's log, supplemental entry. 2 drops of cortisone can save a man's life. 100 times that amount has just accidentally been pumped into Dr. McCoy's body. In his strange and wild frenzy, he has fled the ship's bridge. All connecting decks have been placed on alert. We have no way of knowing if the madness is permanent or temporary, or what direction it will drive McCoy. McCoy evades the security teams and enters the transporter room, where he attacks the transporter chief Lieutenant Kyle from behind, steals his phaser, and energizes the transporter. On the bridge, Kirk has returned from sickbay, where the ship's medical department is uncertain of what McCoy's condition will do to him. Spock, having consulted the library computer, discovers that patients exposed to such a level of cortisone would fail to recognize acquaintances and become hysterically convinced that they were in mortal danger, becoming extremely dangerous to himself or anyone else nearby. Suddenly, the transporter room calls the bridge and informs Kirk that McCoy has transported himself down to the planet, with the transporter at the time being focused on the center of the time disruptions on the surface. Kirk orders a landing party to be set up to retrieve Dr. McCoy.
Yeah, so Dr. McCoy is like in the ship, freely in the ship, going mad,
Yeah.
and they're like, okay, let's slow down here. Let's look at this on the computer.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can research this. I'm gonna walk all the way down to medical and ask them about it, see what they say. You look at the computer and see what the computer says.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely wouldn't just make a one broadcast over the entire ship that if
Mhm.
any officer sees Dr. McCoy to contain him to the best of your ability,
Yeah.
or report where you see him.
Just keep your backs to all the doors.
It's like everyone on the ship would know who the chief medical officer was. It's like
Go
they
about your
all
business. keep
right.
keep your backs to the door. Don't even worry about it.
No.
Oh, and if you see McCoy, just let us know because we need to talk to him about a couple things.
Yeah, he thinks we're all murderers and assassins.
Yeah.
So
he'll be fine. He'll snap out of it.
yeah.
Spock's looking up on the computer to see if anyone's ever happened to inject themselves with this stuff before, like on a higher level.
And he was
Well,
so
there's like one
busy
report.
Yeah. One guy did it. It didn't go to. Yeah, and then the other thing is too is he clearly gets so digged into this that um like there were no notifications on the bridge that like an unauthorized transporter was used to go down to the planet. Like
No.
like that he had to be wait until somebody else, security, had to come into the room and be like, "Oh, there's a guy on the ground." Yeah,
Hey, you're
it's
supposed
a
to be a post. I'm surprised that guy didn't get like, reprimanded for sleeping on the job or something.
give him 2 cc's of cordrazine, get him back on his.
Yeah. Not anymore though.
No,
We don't know what could possibly happen.
extremely dangerous.
Hope we don't find out in this episode. And they all like wink at the camera.
Here is a disgusting big chunk. Here we go.
Kirk, Spock, Scott, Uhura, Galloway, and a security officer beam down and discover a ruined city with an unusual-looking portal in the midst. As Uhura and Scott's team search for Dr. McCoy, Kirk and Spock investigate the object. Spock reports that it is indeed the center of all the time disruptions, although he cannot explain how it is possible. The object, though it appears inert, is in fact generating powerful enough waves of displacement that the Enterprise could detect it millions of miles away. Kirk asks what it is, and a loud, booming voice intones from the object, saying, "A question! Since before your sun burned hot in space and before your race was born, I have awaited a question." The object identifies itself as the Guardian of Forever, explaining that it is both machine and being, while also being neither. Spock deduces that the Guardian is a time portal, a gateway to other times and dimensions, which the Guardian confirms is correct and activates its portal, offering Kirk and Spock a gateway into Earth's past. Suddenly, McCoy cries out. He has been cornered by the search parties. Still madly convinced they are killers and assassins, he tries to escape, but is subdued by a Vulcan nerve pinch, courtesy of Spock. Kirk ponders if they could use the Guardian of Forever to take McCoy backwards a day in time to make certain that his accident never happens. However, the portal's speed is moving fairly quickly, jumping from century to century. Spock suddenly realizes that his tricorder is capable of recording images at the same speed, and activates it just as McCoy regains consciousness. As the landing party is transfixed on the Guardian and the images it is showing, McCoy hears the Guardian explain that this portal will allow people to go anywhere in time. With the landing party momentarily distracted, McCoy jumps up and runs toward the portal until it is too late to stop him. The Doctor jumps through it and the portal shuts down. When Kirk wonders where he went, the voice of the Guardian explains, "He has passed into what was." Uhura suddenly discovers that she has completely lost contact with the Enterprise. Scott finds nothing wrong with the communicators, but the Guardian further explains that your vessel, your being, all that you knew is gone. Kirk makes the horrible realization that McCoy has somehow changed history, stranding the landing party on the planet with no past and no future. Uhura admits to Kirk that she is frightened, but Kirk is equally as disturbed. Earth's not there, at least, not the Earth we know. We're totally alone.
Captain, I'm scared. Hold me. Really like how like the nerve pinch didn't, hold, which is good. It's kind of cool to see like that stuff is like that potent.
Yeah. I don't know what the word is, but just like kind of roll your eyes when they're like, "He's not over here, Captain, in this sector of the thing," and then he just stands up from behind the rock. Yeah, like, and I was like, "Oh, okay, come on." But you come home and when your front door is open, and that's like you stepping inside and looking inside and going, "Nah, nobody's here," and then going out to the police and going, "It's all set."
Yeah, everything's probably fine. I don't really need to look in the basement. I know what's down there.
Yeah, I mean, if he's not right here in front of the living room door,
Nobody could hide in the basement.
he doesn't even know where the basement is.
He doesn't even know where the door to the basement is.
But I liked them getting him like quickly I like how it feels like that's not what's going to happen. I like how
Yeah,
the
right.
episode sets it up like, oh man, he's going to get crazy the whole episode. Oh, wait, no, maybe not. They got him. And then
Yeah.
Kirk is like, well, let's use the thing and go back in time. And you're like, oh, yeah, they're going to go back and they're going to go too far back or something, or, something crazy is going to happen. And now they have a out of control McCoy and it's the three of them. And how do we do
Yeah, right.
this? And blah, blah, blah.
Like they're gonna be the ones that's gonna like jeopardize the future.
Exactly. Exactly. And then when he wakes up, all you think is going to happen is that they're just going to be like, well, he's insane. Like he's going to take a phaser and like try to kill himself or kill them. And they're like, we have to do it now. Spock, jump, jump. We got to jump. Like you think that that's where this episode is going. And then McCoy just jumps in and you're like, oh.
I didn't assume he was gonna jump in either. I assumed they were gonna use it to like help him and it was gonna all
Right.
go horribly awry from there.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, that is a cool like bait and switch, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's one of the few, it's one of those few times that where something entertainment actually surprises you because usually they're, especially old Star Trek, it's like very paint by colors kind of thing. You're like,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Well, yeah, it's because like they're the ones that pioneered it, and now that's like all you see.
It's true.
I really enjoy how Spock's like, oh, it's a portal through time, and the thing's like, yeah, if that's all your brain can comprehend it as, then that's
Oh,
fine.
yeah, yeah,
Spock's
yeah.
like,
Hey.
I'm the smartest person I know, and the thing's like, whatever, bro. You got nothing on
Yeah.
me. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed how it kept like putting like Spock's brains, and kept telling him like, yeah, you're not really that smart.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
The visual effects of them jumping through was just pretty good too.
yeah. Yeah.
I really enjoy that.
It's like dry ice pumps being coming, and then yeah, like and he just yeah. Well, that's
And
what
then
happens
like
when you
when they're
jump
in
through
the
time
city,
portals.
oh, I'm in the city now. Oh. They're also very
Absolutely.
lucky that McCoy happened to jump through at the time period that they were not like the dinosaur era or like medieval.
All true.
This looks like Brooklyn. Watch where you walk. I'm freaking driving. Like, oh, of course they're in. Of
Yep.
course they're in Brooklyn.
Yep. Got to be somewhere easily filmable.
Mm-hmm. Also, what shows how far humanity has come than showing Brooklyn
Yeah,
and like,
showing dirty old New York City and right at the depression.
yeah,
Captain's log. No star date. For us, time does not exist. McCoy, back somewhere in the past, has effected a change in the course of time. All Earth history has been changed. There is no Starship Enterprise. We have only one chance. We have asked the Guardian to show us Earth's history again. Spock and I will go back into time ourselves and attempt to set right whatever it was that McCoy changed. The tricorder scan Spock took just as McCoy left revealed that he jumped back in the early 20th century and can approximate when they should jump through the portal, putting them possibly a month or a week prior to McCoy's arrival. Kirk wonders how they will return to their own time, but the Guardian tells him that if he is successful in mending the timeline, they will all be returned, as if none of them had gone. Scott and Uhura are skeptical about their chances, but Spock logically states that there is no alternative. Kirk, however, out of concern for his officers, tells the landing party to jump through the portal if they feel like they've waited long enough for him and Spock to return, allowing them to make new lives for themselves in Earth's past, rather than be stranded on the Guardian's planet should he and Spock fail to find the time date McCoy jumped to. Scott and Uhura bid them good luck as Kirk and Spock simultaneously jump through the portal, backwards through time.
Yeah.
yeah. So what would be really an interesting concept is like in a multiverse
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
where Spock
Yeah.
and Kirk are unsuccessful. And so like the rest of them decided to jump through and just live out their like days in the past, essentially.
Yeah. Or just
That was
like
interesting. Yeah.
time doesn't they don't come back that quickly.
Yeah.
And now, you know, I mean, kind of the insane thought would be like basically having whatever variation or I don't know, like government name like the Nazis would have after like 300
Mm.
years of like controlling the world, and now they have starships and they're like going to planets and conquering, and like they beam down to the planet, you know, type of thing.
Yeah.
And now they're having to deal with that.
Wow. Yeah, that would be very interesting. What if Kirk and Spock came back both in like Nazi uniforms?
Yeah, it's really funny, much like Indiana Jones, which is fine because it takes place in the 30s and the 40s, but
Hmm.
original series Star Trek and some of Star Trek in general love doing Nazi stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a pretty good like way to show like what time period it is.
Yeah, this is one of them where they refer. This is like the first time they refer to them in the franchise. But the one thing I did like about this last part before they jump, Kirk and Spock jump into the Guardian donut.
Yeah.
I really liked that Kirk was like, "Okay, listen, if we don't come back, like he wasn't like, you know, check out the rest of the planet, see what you can do. Maybe somebody
Yeah.
will find you." He was like, "No, each of you must try individually to also rescue McCoy and us." And I
Yes.
was just like, man.
Wow. That's dedication.
And I get it. It's like, yeah, what else, what really all alternative do you have? You know,
None. And they were happy to do it.
but I just was I really like that they wrote that in because I was just thinking instead of just being like, "We'll see you guys later," this will all work out. I like that they kind of
Yeah.
built in this thing where it was like, well, this might go sideways, and here's what you should do.
In the very rare case that we should fail, you know, like basically like, we're doomed, but you should all try on your own individually so we have more chances.
Yeah,
It's like, wow. Don't
never
even think
stop.
about it. Just jump. Never stop.
The pair arrive in New York City circa 1930. Kirk recognizes the period from old photographs, which Spock clarifies that an economical upheaval had occurred at this point in time. As passerby scrutinize Kirk and Spock's unusual appearance, they make for a back alley to get out of sight. Kirk notices some contemporary clothes on a fire escape and elects to steal them, as their Starfleet uniforms are not suited for the time period. However, they are approached by a police officer, and they get caught red-handed. Kirk awkwardly tries to explain Spock's Vulcan ears, saying that Spock is Chinese and that he got his head caught in a mechanical rice picker, and the policeman prepares to arrest them. However, Spock disables the officer with a nerve pinch, and the pair escape to the basement of what they soon learn is a 21st Street mission.
Oh,
I am under what? You're arresting us for what? Stealing clothes? No, actually, we're
God.
arresting you for being Chinese.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I forgot about that till you read
Oh.
that. That is so funny. I forgot about the whole like, oh, his ears are like that because he's Chinese.
No, no, no. No, 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 no. He has pointed eyebrows and a weird haircut,
Yeah.
and he has like green tinged skin because he's Chinese. And
Yeah.
his ears are because he fell
Oh,
into
the
a mechanical
accident as a
rice
child.
picker.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, that's a lot going on.
As you say, naturally. I mean, obviously the policeman knows it's a BS thing anyways. He's just like, oh, okay. I've
All
heard.
right, all right.
But at the same time, it's just funny that here's Kirk. I get that I get that it's right like 1967 writers. I get it. But here's Reich from like the 23rd century. And you're supposed to believe that he's like,
Mhm.
well, I have a Japanese officer on the bridge. He looks just like Spock. So I'll say he's Chinese.
Oh my god, that's true.
And then he's like, well, why is his ears pointy? And it's because, well, all Chinese people are
picking rice. Yeah, they don't fly ships or anything.
No, nothing else. They're not like a
Oh,
giant nation.
not anymore. They're not.
Not anymore. Gone. Oh my
Destroyed.
god. Destroyed.
Oh, so funny. The funniest thing about that too, other than that whole like blatantly,
Yeah.
racism from the time period, is they're so confident. Like Kirk is so
Oh yeah. Hmm.
confident. He's like, "Oh, we're from the future. This isn't even going to be a concern. These idiots don't understand. We could just take these clothes off the line and they won't even know it." And they turn around and they're
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, you can't do that. That's stealing." And he's like,
Seriously.
"Oh, yes, you're what did they call them back then? Pigs. No,
Bacon,
uh,
bacon.
uh, oh yes, that's right. Coppers. You're a cop. Yes,
Oh man.
I know that. Let's see what else.
Oh man. I also liked the last couple times we've been talking about it and laugh about it is when he shoots the grenade off in arena and they all lean on the other side of the crater and they're like, ooh, ooh.
Mhm.
And then in Errand of Mercy, the ammo dump explodes, and like you did that week, you're like, ooh, don't look at it. Ooh.
Yeah.
So same, I thought the exact same thing. They're walking, and not the two ladies. The two ladies stop and look at Spock, and Spock's like, "Oh God, I gotta hide my ears," right? But when the two guys walk up from the opposite direction, Kirk literally he looks at him and he goes like this. He just kind of like covers his eyes, and I was like,
That's right. They're talking in that alley, like corner alleyway thing, and,
"Yeah,
and those guys like kind of stop, and he's just like,
yeah." I was just like,
"You're like,
why do you
dude,
think?
you're." Also, it's always funny to me that they're like, "Oh, our uniforms are so science fiction. These people aren't going to believe that we're
Yeah,
like normal." And it's like they're wearing like dress pants and like military boots and just like a bright colored shirt. It's
like
not like crazy.
it's not crazy. No,
I mean, like, for the time period, obviously that's not what they were wearing, but it's not like,
they stand out, but they're not like, yeah, they don't look like spacemen.
oh,
They just look like
yeah, they're not
people
wearing
like
like
really.
astronaut suits.
Right, right. That made me laugh really hard. He's just like, like he was almost like posing as a model to like hide from them.
Oh man.
And then when they cross the street, he almost gets hit by the car, which is foreshadowing, right? And then Spock's
Mm,
like, "Oh, fascinating! Look at this!" And Kirk's like, "Come on, I'm about to drive it. Get out of the
I'm
road."
driving it. Yeah, they had to do yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Oh
not New
man.
York if there's not a cab driver yelling at you.
He says, "Oh, there's clothes." And he's like, "Theft, Captain?" And he's like, "Well, we'll rob from the rich and give back to the poor later."
What does he say too? He's basically saying like, "Oh, this is going to be so. Luckily, we landed in this time period where everyone's
Yeah.
morons and we can take advantage." I'm under what? You said that I could speak.
And the thing that always gets me, remember the times we've talked about it in the past where there's certain tropes that happen in shows that they just do. They
Hmm.
always do them. And one of them in this is people finding clothes and they miraculously fit them
Yeah,
very well.
yeah.
It's not like they're too baggy or too tight. Like they don't even get in that. It's like, nope, these are perfectly tailored for these actors.
It's almost like the costume department made these to fit me specifically.
Yeah, it's something that
I,
almost every movie and TV show does, especially like
because
people. Yeah,
Kirk is kind of like average. Like I believe that he could find stuff relatively easy. But like,
sure, yeah,
Spock is tall.
he's
Like he's
tall.
tall. I can't find clothes now. And it's, modern era.
I honestly like if I know not a lot of people like nowadays like hang their clothes out on the line. Well, some people still do, and it's fine. But I'm just
Yeah.
Imagine if that was still a thing that a lot of people did. And you just like you got like thrown out of a car in the downtown of our area. And
Oh
we're
no.
running through people's backyards. The chances of you finding two articles of clothing that you could put on, running into one person's backyard, maybe two, and being like, here's a pair of pants and here's a shirt, it would be, you would never find it. You'd never find it.
Yeah. Yeah, not a chance. Because like even like Walmart and other like chained stores like for clothes don't carry my size
No.
pants on a regular basis.
No, right.
So if they don't carry the size that I need, then nobody else is buying that size. So
No.
I think it'd be really funny. The episode ends where they're all on the bridge, like usual.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And Kirk is sad. And
Yeah.
Spock comes up and says, Captain, we never returned the clothes. Well, Spock, where we're going, we don't need clothes.
Oh.
After changing clothes, Spock laments that locked in his tricorder are the images of how McCoy will change history. Unfortunately, he would need to tie it to the Enterprise computer to access the information. Kirk wonders if he could build a computer aid using contemporary materials, but Spock is dubious as to its success. As their voices carry, they are discovered by the proprietor of the mission, Edith Keeler. Kirk apologizes for their intrusion and tells her the truth as to why they came down there. They had stolen their clothes because they had no money and were being chased by a policeman. Believing them to be victims of the poor economy due to the Great Depression, Edith offers them jobs at the mission, doing chores at 15 cents an hour for 10 hours a day. Kirk and Spock agree and set to cleaning up the basement. Hours later, they are eating their complimentary dinner of soup and bread with the other poverty-stricken citizens, when Keeler takes the stage and gives a motivational speech about how she believes the days ahead are worth living for, theorizing that one day soon, man will be able to harness the power of the atom, which could ultimately propel them into outer space, where they will be able to find ways to feed the hungry millions of the world, to cure the diseases and give mankind hope and a common future. Kirk is impressed with her foresight into the future, while Spock believes it to be merely intuition. Afterwards, Edith compliments Kirk on his and Spock's work in the basement and offers them further work and sets them up with a flop, an apartment, in the building where she lives.
Yeah. She's giving us a what, sir? You're giving us
We
a
have
fuck. Fuck.
yeah. And he's like, what, sir? And he's like, a
You
place
go
to
fuck.
sleep. And he's like, I think one would just say that. And he's like, I
I
don't know why anybody would say that word.
I always associated the term like flop and loft with like London and that kind of stuff. Not so much like New York. But I think a flop house was more of like for
Yeah.
like rescue missions and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. I think they're just supposed to be kind of like more like dorms. Yeah.
The funny term.
I mean, it doesn't really matter because it's written like this. Joan Collins, who plays Edith Keeler, he is British,
Oh,
but
okay.
I don't think that
Yeah,
it
she
was
wouldn't have
like
ad-libbed that.
right, exactly.
New York City kind of took over the loft thing too. Like they have loft apartments, and it's always been like a very British term is like loft. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's just what apartments are, is lofts. But New York took them and made them $6,000 a month, and now
Oh
they're
gosh.
fancy. They have one bathroom and a stove. Can you believe it?
And it's the size of a closet.
Yep. I liked her speech. I didn't know where the episode was going, so I almost kind of like assumed like something was weird about her to begin with. Like she
Mm,
had like foresight, or she knew maybe like
yeah.
she was a time person too. You
Well,
know what I mean?
you have that episode of Enterprise where they get weird scans of this planet, and they're like, there's stuff on this planet that they doesn't correlate with the civilization on it. And Archer's like, and T'Pol is like, no, somebody's messing with the planet. We need to see what's contaminating it. And they go down and they find that shopkeeper, and he's an alien.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Remember that?
So it's like that. It's like you're not off track of thinking maybe Edith Keeler is like a weird alien,
Yeah,
and
you
like
get this
that's
weird vibe. Yeah.
yeah. I like at no point after she says to him, um, he says, "Oh, I forget what he says to her in the first place." She's like, "Well, yeah, you're lying. That's not the truth." And
Yeah.
and she says something to him like, "That's no way to say hello" or something. And from that point forward, he at no point like lies to her anymore, and I like it because even when he turns to Spock and he's like, you could tell he wants to say like Steve or something, but he's like, no, I'm gonna call him by his real name.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I liked her character. I like how she was helping out, like the people on the rescue mission and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, honestly, it was like super refreshing to have like a woman character in the show who
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
like screaming and freaking out, and like she had a really good head on her shoulders. She was an owner of a, like you said, a soup kitchen, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was just like,
She
and there's that scene where you were talking about too, is where he's like, could you get this to work, Spock? And Spock's like, you want me to get this thing to work in an era of vacuum tubes and zinc coated things? He's like, yeah,
yeah.
that's not gonna happen. And then Kirk's like, well, I guess not ever. You can't do everything.
Yeah.
It's my
Yeah.
mistake.
Yeah, he totally set him up, didn't he?
Yeah,
He's like, well, if you can't do it, just say you can't do it. I mean, there's no harm in not being the best scientific officer. Well, that's all right. If Scotty was here, he could probably break something together.
Yeah.
But
I get
alas,
it.
I'm stuck here with you.
Yeah, and then the whole thing where we talked about where they're sitting at the tables, and the guy's like,
That bum, man, that
yeah,
bum next to him, he was so funny to me. He was
like
so like disgusted. He just
the
wanted to
second
eat
one,
his
she's like,
soup.
if you just are here to get a meal so you can keep getting beer and liquor and drinking away your miseries, like I get up and leave. And then it cuts back to him and he's like, yeah, see, told you. Cuckoo,
Yeah, he's
goody
like,
goody. Yeah, like see, she's a
mm-hmm,
do-gooder.
mm-hmm.
So my question to you now, looking at it through the lens of Enterprise,
Yeah.
I said, hmm, is Spock breaking a cardinal Vulcan rule,
Oh,
or is this a continuation of an episode of Strange New Worlds that you haven't seen? He's eating that soup. He has the bread in the soup, and I was like, is there animal product in that soup? Because it's probably like beef stew or something.
oh,
And I went, hmm. I don't think you see Leonard Nimoy eat it. I don't think you see Spock like eat out of the bowl, but you can tell that like obviously he's eating it.
yeah. That's an interesting point because they never,
I mean, they don't tell you
I
what
don't
it
know.
is, right?
In the original series, did they ever lean towards the fact that like Vulcans are vegetarians?
I thought for sure Spock said something in an episode, but I guess he
So the
doesn't.
vegetarian thing is specifically an Enterprise?
It seems like it. It seems like the only reference to it is when she says it.
But now do they make reference of that in Strange New World? And obviously, because that's
They do things in it. They do things in it that make it like, uh oh. No, he totally says it. Spock totally says it in an episode.
hmm. Well, it seems like they've been pulling from Enterprise for
I
Strange New
mean,
Worlds quite a
I mean
bit.
that's definitely the stuff you have to follow because it has already happened.
Yeah.
Where you can mess with the future, but you can't change the past. So
Well, yeah, right.
I'm just saying, like from a writing perspective, like you can do things that make like, oh well, the Gorn, like, oh well, there's this thing, like I guess that
Well,
works, but
I think the writers know that they'd really only be making you and I upset. So if they retroconned any of that stuff,
No.
they're not
It's
going to
coming
send
back.
any letters or anything.
It's
It's coming back.
People love it. People love Enterprise.
Yeah, it's like the original. It's like the original, the prequels for Star Wars.
Yeah.
People now are like, oh, those actually are really good.
Yeah. Well, honestly, what it was the pandemic happened, and
Yeah.
people started to watch. Like Picard came out, they watched Picard, and then they were like, "Well,
They're
what else is on Paramount Plus?" Because that was the only reason to get it.
Yeah,
And
and,
then
they put in
people-
Discovery, and they were like, what else is there?
Right. Right, and then they just keep going, and people watched Enterprise, and were like, "Oh man, this is great."
Wow, we should have watched this when this was airing. We could have had another season. That would have
Yeah.
been cool.
Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, isn't that weird? That's weird.
That's so strange.
So weird.
Several days later, Spock is hard at work attempting to build a computer aid to access the information in his tricorder, but he laments the speed at which the work is progressing, as the technology of the 20th century is barely adequate for his needs. The next day, Spock observes a man using tools for finely detailed work and steals them from the mission's toolbox, using his sensitive Vulcan ears to break the combination. Edith quickly discovers the theft and is very upset that Spock did it, but Kirk is able to convince her that Spock meant no ill will and would return the tools when he was finished. Edith agrees as she becomes fascinated by Kirk and asks him to walk her home. The two become close as Edith questions where Kirk comes from and how he sees the world the same way that she does. As they walk away, Spock looks concerned.
So I like this because Spock does this thing that I always do to you,
Oh.
where I tell you like a project or an idea,
Oh.
and I say, I don't know, that seems really, really involved.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I guess you can't do it. And then like I'll talk to you like 2 days later, like, oh yeah, so that's all done. I did it.
That's all set.
Yeah, I already did that. And I'll send you a picture, be like, yeah, it's almost done.
I just got to paint it.
It became this joke like when I was working on my like Boba Fett costume, and we would be talking about stuff, and then I'd be like, you would head home on like Friday, you'd come over on like a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, yeah, I have no idea about how to do this jetpack. Like, I have no idea where to even start it.
Yeah.
And you'd come over on Friday and be like, hey, look, check out jetpack's all painted. Check it out.
Yeah. You would do the same thing with the phase pistol. You would like look at pictures and you'd be like, I don't even know how this thing goes together. Like, how am I going to cut this to look like this? And then like an hour or two later, you'd be like, oh, look, it bends. It opens up. And I'd be like, weren't you concerned about the handle like an hour ago? And you're like, oh, yeah, but I just glued these two things together.
Yeah. Oh, no, we've already engineered our way past the handle. Nah, what concerns me is the...
Exactly.
Yeah, because when we were first working on that like phaser from Enterprise, I was like,
Yeah.
I just gotta make it stationary. I don't think I really want to like get involved and make it so it like opens or anything. And then we're messing around with it. And I feel like you like looked away and then you look back and hey, check it out, it totally hinges now.
Yeah, I mean we were watching like X-Men or whatever, and I'd watch X-Men on the TV. Yeah, and then I'd walk back.
It's like, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
Clip. Spock totally does that where he's like, you can't do that out of like vacuum tubes, and then like the next thing they come into the room,
Yeah,
and he's got the whole house is all vacuum tubes, and he's like, I don't know if it's gonna hold, but it might.
I feel like the scene lacked what Emmett Brown does to Marty in 1955.
Yeah,
where Marty shows him the tape, he explains everything to him, blah blah blah, and then it cuts to into the garage later, and he's got a model of the city, like the street paint, made out of wood and everything, and he's like, okay, now this isn't the scale, but
yeah.
And Marty's, it's fine, it's okay, Doc, like it's okay. And I feel like that's what Spock mean, like, okay, now it's rudimentary, Captain, but and Kirk just being like, it's fine. Like
it's got like some machine parts, got like lightning bolts coming down, and periodically zapping the thing, everything.
After a few more days, Spock is finally able to access the information in the tricorder, where he discovers Edith Keeler's 1930 obituary. Her death as the result of a traffic accident. As Kirk enters, Spock attempts to replay it for him, but another image appears, a newspaper article from 1936, detailing a meeting Edith Keeler has with President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Unfortunately, the strain on the computer aid overloads it, requiring extensive repair work before it can be used again. Kirk believes within 6 years Edith will become nationally famous, but Spock tells Kirk the caretaker will die this year. Spock tells Kirk of the 1930 obituary for Edith, and that she is the focal point in the time that both they and Dr. McCoy will be drawn to. Kirk ponders what the correct course of history is, if she lives or dies, and what role McCoy, especially in his quarterzine-induced condition, will play it. Does he kill her or prevent her from being killed? Spock asks Kirk the most pressing question of all. Suppose they discover that to set history right, Edith Keeler must die. Kirk cannot answer, and he wrestles with his growing affection for her and the role she will ultimately play in history.
I forgot how much the writers actually took the time to like make it make sense. That like, why would this little like soup kitchen lady like death or not death?
Yeah, right. Why would
Like,
that change anything in
like
history?
why would that suddenly be like the Federation isn't the thing and the Star Trek Enterprise is gone? Like,
Yeah.
why would that affect it?
It's like this one person, if she doesn't die, then like Nazis rise to power. It's like, wow,
Right.
that's pretty
Yeah,
pretty good.
and I liked that, it was like, well, she's a pacifist, and it's all this stuff that like she gets to talk to the president, and it makes him make certain decisions, which then it ends up changing history over a long series of time. That she's like the catalyst. She's not necessarily the sole reason. It's just like she's the spark.
Hmm. She basically, what it does, right, is it delays the U.S. from getting involved
Correct.
in the war.
Right.
Yeah.
He says that the Germany they invent the atomic bomb before
Yep.
America does. So
Yep. That's right. Yeah.
so I can understand. I mean, it's to me, that's a logical
Yeah. I
thing
like
to
that.
believe that okay, the Nazis found a way to cross the Atlantic, and also they had the atomic bomb. It's like, yeah, the world probably would have changed.
Hmm. Yeah. It just shows you that like it really doesn't take like a whole lot to have changed
Right,
like the course of history.
right.
I do feel like that is the scene though where he comes in with the groceries.
I think where it said that Spock is hard at work attempting to build the computer aid to access the information in his tricorder, but he laments the speed at which the work is progressing as the technology of the 20th century is barely adequate for his needs. I think that's
Yeah.
the scene.
That's when he asks for like
Yeah.
platinum and all this like
Oh man.
raw material.
And he's like, "Well, I got bread and some fresh fruits and vegetables and bologna."
It was so funny to me
And
seeing
he's,
like Spock at home
oh
and Kirk walk in with like the groceries
yeah, like
and
you were
him being
watching.
like, "Hey, look at I bought this. Look what I bought at the store for us, honey." Kirk's like, "I need gold and platinum." And he's like, "Well, I can't afford that on my wages."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Vulcan episode that T'Pol talks about where they're in
When
Pennsylvania
when
and
they're in the past. Yeah.
yeah, and he's like, and they're watching the Three Stooges and eating TV dinners and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and he comes
Oh, it
home
was
from
to Paul. It was her
it's
mom.
T'Pol, her like great grandmother, her grandma or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whatever the guy's name is, one of the Vulcans comes in and he's like, "That's the third time this week that Mrs. Whatever's sink has broke." And then the other Vulcan's like, "That is because she enjoys your appearance and wishes for you to come over, and because she is lonely because her husband works." So then he's just like, and he's like, "TV dinner again," type of thing. And he sits
It's
down, and
very
then
mundane for these
yeah,
like highbrow. I love that stuff.
they watch the Three Stooges, and he's like, "I do not understand humans who enjoy violence."
It's it's the stuff. It's the stuff that made like Third Rock from the Sun very
Oh
funny,
my gosh. Yes.
right? I mean, that was the whole premise. So when Star Trek does these episodes where it's like,
Yeah.
it's this whole show.
Yes.
I love it where they're
Oh
like living these
yeah.
mundane lives. It's so good.
I mean, the reality is, in nowadays story writing, this would be like an entire season.
Yeah, they're
Like,
stuck in the past.
yeah, it would be like you would see the episode one would be McCoy. This happens to McCoy. He goes in the past. They leap back. They get set up with Edith Keeler and all this stuff, and then they learn. And then like every episode, you learn like, oh man, like Edith has to die.
Yeah. Did you
When's McCoy going to
say?
show up?
Did you say they leap back?
Oh. Dun, 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 dun. They have to
Yeah.
go back and make right what
In
McCoy had once
mm,
made wrong,
to the past, back to the past.
theorizing that he could travel in one's
No
lifetime. After 20 years of doing this, those will be our next rewatches is Quantum Leap and Third Rock from the Sun.
kidding. That would be great. I love Scott Bakula, so I'd
Yeah,
be
me
all
too.
for him.
So we're at the halfway point, so go down to the comment section and write in the comment section baloney. I'll know.
In a back alley elsewhere in the city, Dr. McCoy arrives, screaming out to the assassins and murderers, garnering the attention of a homeless man, awestruck with fear. He runs, but McCoy pursues him, promising he won't kill him. He eventually catches up to him, but McCoy soon wonders where he is. The constellations in the sky lead him to believe that he's on Earth, but even in his manic state, he believes it's some kind of trick. He begins sobbing hysterically at how hospitals in the past needed to use needles and sutures to attend to people, and loses consciousness, collapsing in the alley. The derelict picks McCoy's pocket and takes his phaser. Unfortunately, as the naturally curious man examines the strange gun-like object, he activates the overload circuit and disintegrates both himself and the phaser. The next morning, McCoy looks in terrible shape. As he staggers around the streets, still suffering the effects of his cordrazine overdose, he discovers the 21st Street mission. He goes inside, where Edith is serving coffee. She notices his condition and offers to help, but he says he must not be found, so she takes him to a cot in the back room where he will not be disturbed. As they depart, Spock takes over for her pouring the coffee, missing McCoy by only a few seconds. Shortly thereafter, Spock is able to repair the computer aid and access the tricorder again.
To me, this is when the episode really starts to pick up now, and you're like, okay, this is good. This is good.
Yeah, the man dropping the milk.
Yeah.
God,
Yeah, the poor milk. It's funny.
I think it's the same guy. I think it's this guy sitting
Yeah.
next to Kirk.
Definitely, right? Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man, he's like so scared of McCoy. It was so funny. But yeah, so McCoy, he's so like he like wants to go to the hospital because he wants to see like how barbaric they used to be. Just,
Yeah.
right? Because that's kind of a thing where he has all
Yeah.
those instruments like on his like
Yeah.
wall and his yeah.
Yeah. He knows all about it. He's
he
interested
loves
in it. But not because he thinks it's cool, because he thinks it's terrible. It's like be like, oh
Mhm.
well, I'm interested in World War One, but the only things they put up on my wall are like mustard gas capsules. And like,
That is a weird concept, right?
yeah. It'd be
Like
like, oh, bayonets.
you would think him as like a doctor would have that stuff up there to show like here's the history of like
Yeah,
how
like,
far
so-
we've come.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, look at how terrible all this was that we used to use this.
Yeah. But this is the only thing I don't like about the episode.
Okay.
And it's not him interacting with him. It's like the homeless interaction thing is fine. It's the fact that the guy takes the phaser
Yeah.
and then disintegrates, right? Or vaporizes, whatever. And it's
Yeah.
like, and that's it. And it's like, so we are literally led to believe that guy has to die and she has to die. because
I didn't think
they
about
don't
that.
like he dies due to McCoy interfering with his life, and it's like, okay, sure, he's a quote unquote bum,
Yeah,
but like you don't know what this guy's who he's gonna bump into, what he's gonna do. You have no idea. He
that's
could
really
step in
funny.
front of traffic and like cut somebody off, and he saves the president from not getting in a head-on crash. Like you have no idea what this guy's not gonna do or
Or
do.
are they trying to say that because he's a bum, his life is so un unimportant that it doesn't matter if he lived or dies in this
I think
episode?
I think there's a weird thing that you and I are not getting.
Bums are disgusting.
I think for 1967 watchers, I think it was like, oh, I
Yeah,
think it's two things. I think one, I think it is supposed to be the guy in the soup kitchen. And I think because he likes beer or whatever, alcohol, it's like he's a bad guy. He's awful. Like
yeah.
how she gets mad about it is, and because he rolls his eyes at it, it's like, oh well, he's bad. He's a bad guy.
Maybe they're saying that like because he hates her idea of like
Mm-hmm.
the future and stuff like that makes him
Exactly.
a bad person going forward.
That coupled with
He's a thief and a
he's a
disgusting bum.
right, he's an
Get him.
alcoholic bum who steals.
Get
Like he right, exactly.
him. Yeah, because he stole the milk and then he stole the phaser, and
Yeah.
that was his
It's like,
downfall.
oh
And they're
well,
saying
shouldn't have touched it.
suck on that. Is what they're saying.
Other than that, I was like everything else was I like about it. It's just like it just felt so this guy dies and it's just like yeah, but that's another death and it's like butterfly effect is what they
Mm-hmm.
say.
Sucks
It's
for
like
you, bro.
you have no idea.
I
Literally
really
him seeing him and dropping the milk is already like altered history. You've already changed the course of history, right? It's like
well, yeah, maybe that's the thing. Maybe like because he saw McCoy and this weird future guy, like he
he becomes a Nazi.
couldn't live, he couldn't stay alive because yeah, I don't know.
Mm,
I like McCoy showing up at
yeah,
like the same mission. I really like that sort of thing when the two main people are here and he's here and he kind of shows up at like a different time. Like him walking in and eating help and immediately getting taken care of, and then like Spock comes out to the counter to like pour coffee like seconds after. Like I enjoy that kind of stuff, you know.
yeah. As if
But
only he had like right,
yeah,
like
but
come
they
in
pay
a
it off.
second later.
They pay it off too in a way where like most shows don't anymore. Where it's this thing where this character that they know now knows about McCoy. Like she knows his name.
Yeah,
Other shows like they wouldn't even mention it.
right. Yeah,
But I feel like they paid off really well in this episode where they're walking to the movie and she's like, "Oh, that's what McCoy said," and he's like, McCoy." Like any other show,
yeah,
with like this big reveal at the end. It was
right. Yeah, it was just like conversation. It was just normal, right? And
yeah,
she doesn't have a reason to talk to Kirk about every guy who comes into the soup kitchen. Like it
yeah,
makes
right.
natural sense. Like okay, I another alcoholic guy came in who was really sick. Like why does she have to tell him that? He doesn't
And she didn't see Kirk and Spock in their
in the
uniform, so
uniform,
she didn't
right?
recognize the uniform. So that's like
Right.
another.
And when she says she's going out with another guy, she doesn't say anything. Like she doesn't say Jim or any. She just says a young man type of thing. So it's like it all comes together nicely.
I like how too. The funny thing is like the whole episode kind of started where they thought they were gonna have to go back in time to like save McCoy from that injection, but all he had to
Yeah.
do was just sleep it off.
Oh, just
Because he
keep
wakes up that morning like
walking.
fine.
Yeah.
Because he wakes up fine and he believes he's in like a simulation.
It's like this is when he grabs onto the homeless guy's head and he's like, yeah, this is a pretty good simile of a human cranium.
Oh,
He's like, okay. I was thinking if I was McCoy at any point, if I was a Starfleet officer and I woke up in a situation and it was unfamiliar or seemed unbelievable, I wouldn't be like, well, clearly, just I'm dreaming, or I don't know, I just had too many cookies last night. I'd be like, oh God, some alien civilization has me, and I'm getting trapped in this terrible thing. Like
Yeah.
you must play the full Quetzalcoatl into the end, and we're
There's
going to
like there's like a history of it too, you know?
yeah,
Like
oh, absolutely,
even like with Pike and
yeah,
those aliens like can control what you see and feel and
oh
take stuff.
yeah,
And he just
yeah,
immediately is like, this isn't real. This is bull crap.
yeah.
According to scans taken from the time vortex, Spock is convinced that McCoy prevented Edith Keeler's death in a traffic accident as she was meant to in the correct timeline. She later went on to found a pacifist movement whose influence on President Roosevelt delayed the United States' entry into World War II. As the peace negotiations dragged on, Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany had time to complete their heavy water experiments, allowing them to develop the atomic bomb first, with which Germany conquered the world. Basically, Edith Keeler had all the right ideas, but not at the right time. Spock tells Kirk they must stop McCoy. Kirk wonders when she has to die, but Spock informs him that while they can extrapolate general events, they cannot pinpoint exact movements at exact time. Kirk, his heart already breaking, tells Spock that he believes he is in love with Edith. Spock grimly reminds Kirk, Edith Keeler must die.
Yeah. It's kind of a sad revolution.
Yeah,
And like
it's a
even
heavy, yeah,
even if you like kept her
yeah,
alive for a little bit to see like when she actually needed to die, or like if there's a time period where she would have not changed the history if you left her alive. Yeah, it's fun. It's actually really heavy for like this early like fun Star Trek show,
yeah, right,
in my
right. I know.
opinion. Yeah, it's just one of those things too where it's like even after Kirk comes to that realization, he still decides to like spend time with her and take her to the
Yeah,
movies and stuff. And it's like, dude, why would you
yeah,
do that, you know?
yeah. Can't help himself.
Even to the point, right, where he like saves her from falling down the stairs.
Yeah,
So it's like, so
yeah.
is in Star Trek is like death real? Is that like a thing? Because it very much seemed like Final Destination type thing where she like needed to die and she was gonna fall and die, and he's like, "Oh, I saved you," and she's like, "Oh man, I would have broken my neck and died right there in the stairs.
Yeah.
Thank God you're here." It's like, oh, Cook, you messed it up again, Cook. And Spock's just watching, like, no, let her die.
Let her die.
The Nazis going to rule the world, and he just goes back inside the room.
But here's some trivia that you'll enjoy. So Joan Collins credits her 4-year-old daughter, Tara, for her decision to appear in this episode. She was having never heard of the show before. She told her children, Tara and Alexander, about the offer, and her daughter enthusiastically encouraged her to appear.
This 4-year-old.
Yeah, so Edith Keeler's Joan Collins' real daughter, Tara, told
That's
her.
really funny.
Yeah. I think the same thing, a similar thing happened with Patrick Stewart too. I don't think they told him to do it. I think he took the offer and he was just like he kind of knew what Star Trek was, but like not really. And he
Well,
went home.
that makes more
Yeah.
sense for like his kids to be like, oh heck yeah, Dad, be in Star Trek.
Yeah, he came home and he was like, "Is it a good thing that I'm in Star Trek?" And they were like, "Oh man, that's awesome." I think that was what he said in an interview once, but I don't remember.
But it's just funny that she's like, hey, 4-year-old, should I be in this show? And they're like, yeah, that's great. And she's like, well, I guess I'm doing it.
I make all of my decisions based off of what my children.
I just picture this 4-year-old being like really advanced and then having like a newspaper, like drinking coffee and be like, I heard the newest ratings, very good for Star Trek.
It's only been out for 28 episodes, but
Mother, I
think it's
encourage
going.
you to be part of this. It could change the history of man.
If not, um, they said in in some broadcast versions, they edited out the guy getting killed, vaporizing himself.
Good. Because that's whacked.
So the footage seen in the time portal, for the most part, is lifted from old Paramount Pictures and
I knew that.
RKO Pictures
I,
films.
I definitely picked up on that. It looked like Ben-Hur and
Yeah, it was. It says here, and I really like what it says. It says it should be noted though that Desilu had not yet been acquired by Paramount's holding company, Gulf and Western, at the time,
oh,
and that the use of these clippings in the episode essentially constituted a copyright infringement in current understanding. I love it.
when did they take over like ownership of it?
Oh gosh, probably like in the
Like a
70s or
like a
80s.
while after? Geez.
Yeah. So, is there did them walking around look familiar
Which part?
in the city? Sorry, when they're walking around the city at really any, except for when the McCoy stuff, when he's talking to the guy, the hope, the whatever.
Okay, so I'm trying to remember.
So you got the corner alley and the ladies and the guys looking at him. They cross the street, the fire escape, like all that stuff.
Yeah,
Them running through the thing and going down the steps to go inside the building. Them crossing the street.
it did look kind of familiar.
But
I'd have a hard time pinpointing.
that's fine. I mean, they film it from different angles, so you don't think it of the
Is
same.
it so I'm trying to think what else from that era would have been out that they would have
Yep.
Psycho? No.
It's something. It's something that was going to be out for one more year after it had already been out for 7 years.
Oh, like another show
Another show.
based in New York City.
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
So they used that same scene as New York and in also a different city.
Yep. Well, they use the exterior like town shot as, they want us to believe it's New York City, but the other show doesn't want you to believe it. They want you to believe it's a different town. They don't want you to think it's New York City.
Can you say the name of the town, or does that give away the show?
It would immediately give away this show. It starts with an M, and it's a very famous name of a fake. I think it's like real, but it's
Oh,
also
Mayberry.
yeah.
So Andy Griffith was filmed there.
Yeah. It's the same set used for Andy Griffith. And it says while Kirk is walking with Edith Keeler, they pass the courthouse and Floyd's barber shop.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know why it looks familiar but not the same is because it's in color.
It's in color.
Well, the last season that Andy Griffith was color, wasn't it?
Yeah, yep. It was after when this came out, literally like almost exactly a year later, Andy Griffith aired its last episode.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool trivia thing.
It is, yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I thought you'd like that, yeah.
I do like that.
The Guardian of Forever was designed by art director Roland M. Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, set design was the purview of his colleague Matt Jeffries, but due to illness, Brooks took over his chores for The Guardian. When Jeffries returned to his duties and saw the donut-shaped set piece for the first time, he reportedly exclaimed, "What the heck is this?" according to story editor Fontana. Together with Jeffries, Jim Rugg, who was a special effects artist responsible for the light effects in The Guardian, were also responsible for Spock's computer aid to access the information in his tricorder for the episode. As Jeffries recalled, when a script came out, Roddenberry would say, "I need something that supposedly does such and such. Come up with something."
Oh, that's fun.
So we would work together on the workbench with Jimmy Rugg and see what we could cobble together. To which Rugg added, "We got a bunch of antique vacuum tubes, real 30s types, and added a few blinking lights among them." Rugg subsequently oversaw its destruction in the episode.
That's fun. That I like that.
Yeah.
Like coming up with that type of thing.
Yeah. The guy,
It's really funny
Roddenberry's
that
like, I don't know.
the special effects guy named Andy Rugg didn't come up with that monster from last week's episode that literally just was a guy under
Oh,
a
right.
rug.
This is an interesting one. I think I don't know if it's like super, but I thought it was interesting. It says Clark Gable, who was by no means a leading man in 1930, was not the original choice of reference.
Hmm.
The final shooting draft of the script has Edith reference a Richard Dix movie, but the crew on the set felt Dix's name would not be familiar to viewers in the 60s. So they actually wrote a time appropriate actor, but people they were like, nobody's gonna know who that guy is.
That's funny. Here you go. This episode,
Yeah.
but you take out the policeman
Oh no.
and you make it Don Knotts.
You're a police officer. I recognize the traditional accoutrements.
You were saying you'll have no trouble explaining it.
My friend is obviously Chinese.
Now talk about
Yeah.
a tie-in, like a TV show tie-in.
And they end up using like a reoccurring character on Andy Griffith is Edith Keeler. Like they don't make her like a one-off. They make her like a character that's been on the show that like everybody likes, like really, right? Like somebody who's
Like
like,
it's really like big town news that she got like killed.
Mhm.
Like, oh,
it's like one of the main cast like of Andy Griffith gets killed.
oh,
And it's like, but what, and then you do the thing that they used to do like in the 90s and the early 2000s for television is you'd have the Andy Griffith episode, then you'd go to the next episode and it would just be everybody sad and like having her funeral service. And it would be like, well, what happened? And be like, well, if you want to know what happened, you'd have to go watch, you'd have to watch the Star Trek episode.
wow. Yeah, that's good.
McCoy regains consciousness, almost fully recovered now, with Edith at his bedside. While it appears to him that he's back on Earth around 1920 or 25, she asks him if he would care to try for 30. McCoy introduces himself to Edith and declares that he is the chief medical officer aboard the USS Enterprise. Edith, believing him to be speaking of a naval vessel, tells him that he is hardly wearing a Navy uniform and dismisses his claim as part of his condition. Noting the peculiar way he speaks of present day, for her Earth, she asks McCoy if she would like to meet her friend who seems to talk the same way, but McCoy is not interested. "I'm a surgeon, not a psychiatrist," he states. Later, at their apartment building, Kirk approaches Edith on the staircase. As she goes to meet him, she stumbles. Kirk reflexively catches Edith before she can fall. Spock witnesses this, and after Kirk and Edith part for the moment, Spock reminds him that she might have died had Kirk not caught her. Kirk, his voice vacant, dismisses it by saying, "It's not yet time. McCoy's not here." Spock, however logically, states that they are not certain of their facts and cannot know for sure when the right time will come. He reminds Kirk that if he saves Edith's life, millions will die who did not die before.
Yeah, and they don't even know if McCoy is going to show up
Yeah,
at
right.
that city at that time period. Like, like he could show up anywhere on Earth, basically. He's just hoping that like the two streams of time pull them together at the same intervals. Like it's all
Yeah,
just
right.
theory.
Yeah.
In the evening hours, McCoy is now fully restored to health thanks to Edith's ministrations. As he drinks a cup of coffee, he offers to help out around the mission to thank her for saving his life. Edith tells him they can discuss it later as she has to leave, as her gentleman caller is taking her to see a Clark Gable movie. Dr. McCoy naturally doesn't know about Clark Gable, but knows what a movie is, which Edith finds very strange, and bids him good night.
I do really like that scene where McCoy comes out and they like basically run into each other like face to face, and they're all like, "Hey!" and they like hug.
Yeah.
Like, "You're here." Like I thought that was pretty good. It's not followed by anything fun, but
No.
that was fun. Short lived, yeah.
Yeah.
Why does he come? Why does he come out? Though that was my only question.
I don't know. I
Because
get
he
the
had to see.
impression there's one thing that happens, and I thought maybe that's what they were trying to like set up with the writing. She gives
Hmm.
him hands in the newspaper, and he's just like, whatever. He's just like, yeah, I'm not gonna read. This is all fake, so I'm not gonna like read a fake newspaper. Like I don't care.
Fake news. Not
Right.
reading it.
Not reading.
Nah.
But at the very end of the scene, when she leaves his room, he like you see him look at the newspaper, and he kind of makes a face like, hmm. He makes like that's weird. Like takes interest in the newspaper. So my thought is he reads something and he's like, well, am I in 1930? Because on the newspaper it would have the date, and he would be like, if I'm in New York City in 1930, because he can see out the window,
Hmm.
he's like, well, let me go out here and see what's really going on.
Yeah, I can jump on board that.
Yeah. The only thing that was really weird about that scene was when, and I don't think it was written this way. I think it was just filming choices,
Yeah.
but it came across a really dirty way, like perverted. Is McCoy is like, so I really appreciate everything you've done. Is there anything I could like do? Just
To
anything.
your apartment or
Yeah, and he kind of just like lingers, and then and then she kind of bashfully is like, oh, well, no, it's okay,
maybe
like
when I get back from my date.
right, yeah, and then says that to him, and I'm like, are they implying that McCoy is like,
Oh yeah.
oh, we could have sex?
He's yeah, that does seem like that's kind of what they were implying. That's to me, so like right off the bat, that's why like Kirk and McCoy were gonna to ruin this whole historical
Yeah,
timeline is because they both are gonna fall for the same woman.
yeah,
Spock exits the mission at the same time as Kirk and Edith. As they cross the street hand in hand, Edith mentions the idea of seeing the Clark Gable movie. Kirk questions who she's talking about, and Edith makes an offhand comment about how Dr. McCoy had the same reaction. Kirk immediately jumps to attention and asks Edith if she's talking about Leonard McCoy. She confirms this, and Kirk tells her to wait on the sidewalk for him as he calls out to Spock. They dash back to the mission as Dr. McCoy exits from the mission. The three embrace in relief at finally being reunited. Edith, watching from the other side of the street, begins to cross to see what is going on as a large truck turns the nearby corner and speeds down the street. Kirk notices her approaching and the oncoming truck and tries to warn her, but Spock yells out, "No, Jim!" Dr. McCoy, oblivious to what the ramifications are, begins to run out to help Edith, but Kirk holds him back as the truck driver slams on the brakes but cannot stop in time. Edith is knocked down by the truck and killed instantly. Kirk, his eyes clenched in grief, cannot bear to look as passerby scurry into the street and surround Edith's crumpled, lifeless form. McCoy, shocked and outraged, turns to Kirk and says, "You deliberately stopped me, Jim. I could have saved her. Do you know what you just did?" Kirk shoves McCoy aside as Spock somberly replies, "He knows, Doctor. He knows." Kirk is heartbroken by having restored history with the awful means of allowing Edith Keeler's death.
Dead on arrival, buddy.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
I know they couldn't show it, but yeah,
It's not supposed to be funny, but the scene is funny because Kirk's like, "Did you say McCoy?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Spock, he's
yeah,
here. We got him. He's here." Oh, wait a second. You stay right here. You stay right here on the sidewalk where it's safe. Don't go on the road. Don't do anything crazy. I'll be right back.
right.
He immediately is like walking into the street.
She just kind of leisurely walks across the New York City street at
Yeah.
night.
Like, what? What is she doing? You know?
And they do several times, like foreshadow. Even when they leave before she says McCoy, they almost get hit by a car
I
with.
know. Yeah,
And
they're really playing with that.
they're definitely letting you know that like they're trying to make it seem like at any moment she could get hit. Like you could get hit by cars, and I get it. Like if you were on a 55-mile-an-hour road, yeah, of course, but on a 25-mile-an-hour New York City street, like you're not.
That's the
You're,
other. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like a little side cobble street. They're not. You're not going to be driving like crazy. You're not
right,
even going to have like tractor trailers or anything at that era.
right. It's probably like a fish truck or something.
It probably was. Yeah, going to the harbor or something. Yeah, no,
Right.
you're right. But yeah, they just couldn't. He couldn't see her.
No.
It also is funny too. So it's like, so is the future like record book is just Clark Gable just doesn't exist, or
I mean, to be fair, I think it's like anybody saying anything from like 100 years ago now. Like, hey, this guy, and you're like, I don't know who that guy is.
I don't know who Charlie Chaplin is. Get out of here.
It'd be like, hey, remember the great actor who played this guy during the Shakespearean plays? You'd be like, I don't know these people.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do. In fact, I know Glamis
Everything.
Glorium.
Yep. His father was Magnus Glorium. Mother was Madrid Glorium.
Oh, I see.
Heir of the Glorium Foundation. I mean, come on, it's very basic thing.
It's very simple. Very simple.
I guess that is true that it has been 100 years. I just
Yeah.
assume that when you live in an era where you can watch anything that's been pre-recorded by human history just by like doing this,
Yeah.
like you could just
But
uh,
here's the plus one to that.
yeah.
Now
Nobody
you're
cares.
in a now you're in a no, now you're in a federation with Vulcans, Andorians, Tellarites,
Well, it's true. You got too
and
much
it's like
Andorian TV to watch, and I would
you got a
much rather.
lot, right? Exactly. It's like you got a lot of content to now watch. I don't know if your first gut reaction would be like, let me watch something 300 years old, or watch
No,
like
I'd be
somebody like
keeping up with the Galactics
right, and you'd be like,
this
oh,
Sunday.
there is. I know this is just gonna upset you, but
Only
there,
on the network.
yeah, yeah, I know this is gonna upset you, but
Of course it is. Yeah.
in an episode of this recent season of Lower Decks, that's what
Oh boy.
happens.
Yeah, I don't get to watch that show.
One of the officers gets stuck. He binge watches a certain race's television, and he can't like stop. It's pretty funny.
That's great.
Back in the 23rd century, Spock and Kirk, once again in their Starfleet uniforms, emerge from the time portal. An incredulous Scott asks what happened, as from his perspective they only left a moment ago. From within the time vortex, Dr. McCoy also emerges from the time portal. Spock answers, "We were successful." The Guardian of Forever accordingly declares, "Time has resumed its shape. All is as it was before. Many such journeys are possible. Let me be your gateway." Uhura is now able to contact the Enterprise, and the ship's crew is asking the landing party if they want to beam up.
It's funny that they thought that it was going to take a long time before they saw them again. When McCoy jumps through, it's like immediately, oh, the ship doesn't exist anymore. Like immediately.
Right.
And now they come back like seconds later and they're like, oh wow, that was quick. Like it's you'll get it. You'll get it. Wow, that was
Yeah.
really quick. Like, yeah. You think McCoy destroyed the history of the planet in the 3 seconds that he jumped through the thing? Obviously, like time is different in there.
Wow.
It's
Scotty.
always this fun concept too, where these characters have basically lived
Yeah.
like a life,
Yeah. Yeah.
not like a full lifetime, but I mean they were there for a couple weeks and
Right.
they basically lived in that time period, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like now they just have. That is the thing that annoyed Adria a lot with the Kirk stuff and other stuff in Star Trek, where like stuff like this happens, where he meets like Edith Keeler, and there's an episode in the third season where he gets Kirk gets his mind erased, and he ends up marrying like a Native American lady,
Nice.
and she effectively becomes his wife, and they like live together, and it's just
Mhm.
and she's like all this stuff, and then Spock comes up with a thing and restores his memories, and then Kirk's like, oh, and he just leaves. And that's it, and she's never talked about like again, and it's just like it's stuff like that where they introduce a lot of things like this, and
Uh-huh.
which is where I think Strange New Worlds gets it right, is keep keep new stories each week, new story, new mission, keep it
Hmm.
moving, don't stay in the same
Yeah.
storyline
Let it
week
actually
after,
like affect your character moving forward.
but let him be changed by what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah, because like so this episode, for example, is a perfect example. Like he's heartbroken by the idea of this having to take place.
Right.
But now next week we'll watch Trouble with Tribbles and it'll be
Oh
just,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
this is wacky and zany, huh? Hey, you remember when we had to kill
Yeah.
that lady? Oh well.
Oh yeah. Well, next week's episode you're gonna love too, because yeah, you'll love what happens after that episode too. But yeah, I totally agree with you. It's sad. It's sad. I don't think there's anything. I mean, I know there's like comics and books and blah blah blah, but
Yeah.
I don't think anything ever refers to Edith Keeler again.
Hmm.
Too traumatized from what he had had to allow to happen to Keeler for any willingness to accept the Guardian's offer, Kirk tensely says, "Let's get the hell out of here." The group readies themselves for transport, and Uhura sends a signal on her communicator to the Enterprise, confirming they are ready to return. The landing party dematerialize and vanish, leaving the Guardian of Forever alone once again.
Well, with that concludes our episode. But before we wrap it up, let's do everyone's favorite thing.
Caleb? Caleb, Caleb, Caleb.
All right, Caleb, who gets the Erica Ortegas Award for being most unlikable?
The Rock.
The whole thing.
Yep.
Like,
Don't like him. I don't get it. I don't understand what his purpose is. I don't like him.
Can you speed this up anyway? No, I can't.
I don't want to. I don't ever want to see him again. I'm just done.
Okay, who gets the Elizabeth Cutler Award for being most forgettable?
Barney Fife.
Okay, yeah. I see by your accoutrements you are a policeman.
Yeah, and I got one bullet.
Oh, wait till the sheriff shows
Wait
up.
till Andy.
Who gets the Trip Tucker Award for being the MVP?
Spock, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, Kirk does stop McCoy,
Yeah.
but you're right. Kirk wouldn't know to do that if it wasn't for McCoy or Spock.
Yeah. I mean, Spock would have like fell in love with this woman and it would have been over.
Yeah.
Spock built a computer out of a bunch of scraps. And he did that and he figured out the future and what they needed to do. And he kept reminding, like, every time Kirk would get like further involved, he'd be like, Kirk, she needs to die. she has to die, Kirk.
Stop looking at her. Yeah, stop.
And he's like, yes, I know. And he's like, no, that means stop kissing her, Kirk.
Yeah.
We're just gonna talk. Kirk. She needs to die.
He talks so softly to her too. Every time she's talking to him, he's just like, oh yes.
Mhm.
I know. Yeah.
I'm from the stars. I'm Starman.
I'm a star man.
I'm a star.
I'm a rocket man.
burning out his
He's up here. Yeah.
and I'm afraid I have
That was low hanging
kill
fruit.
you.
And I think it's gonna be a long. Okay, so what gets the Shran Award for being the best action sequence?
It's when the relays blow.
It's what? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, let's just do that for the sake of not being, you know.
Yeah. Cruel and unusual. Okay, what gets the NX award for some sweet ship stuff?
I think this is the first time I've seen like that McCoy carries like a phaser.
Okay.
I like seeing him with a
Yeah.
phaser. And specifically, he carries a phaser #1.
Phaser number one. So
And I
you
think
like
that's,
McCoy's phaser number one, is really what
yes,
it is.
McCoy's #1 phaser. I think that's interesting that that's what he carries.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my pick.
All right, what gets the Porthos award for being the cheesiest thing of the episode?
The bum getting phased was like the weirdest thing in the episode
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, same.
Kind of came out of nowhere and it didn't really add anything, so I didn't
No.
really like it. So that's what I'm. It's cheesy in the sense of like it's just like one of those like, oh, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't really funny.
It's cheesy in the sense of like this is unnecessary and doesn't actually add or detract from
Yeah, it
anything. It
doesn't do
doesn't like
anything.
it's like he is just a thing to just be there so that McCoy's like conversation and like realization of where he is like has context, but that's like really his only purpose. That like
Yeah,
almost guy.
you could have done that other ways too, though. And
So many other different. He could have met the police officer. Like there's so many different ways.
I mean, he could have had that conversation with her too. Like she could have found him, taken him in, and had that
That
conversation.
that too. Yep.
And that already like puts him in her care
Right.
and just avoids like everything else.
You could have just you could even had that guy just see him and chase him into the soup kitchen, right? Like
Yeah, just like run away from him.
right. And lastly, what gets the Enterprise Award for the best scene of the episode?
I like, what was funny? I didn't mention it when we were talking about it, but like the thing that I thought was funny that caught me funny was the same scene there where Kirk comes in with the grocery bag. Like as the door opens, like Spock is like on the table and he's working on something. And like as he hears the doorknob, he's like, and then he sees it's Kirk and he's like
right.
It was like,
yeah.
Who else would be coming in the room, like just walking in the room?
Right.
But the ears, they're gonna be drawn to your ears, not the giant bomb looking thing that you're building on the workbench.
That's true. Cover it up. Don't want her to see a DeLorean.
I know. And she's like, "What's this? What you working on?" They're like, "Oh, science stuff."
but the thing I like again is he doesn't lie.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay. I like that that's like the theme is as long as you don't try to lie to her, like she goes along with it. It's the same reason why she lets the precision tools be stolen is because he's like, well, if Mr. Spock says he's just using them for now and he'll return them in the morning, like you can be assured that they will be returned in the morning.
He's definitely going to return them in the morning.
So the best scene is like when he's at the table and like he's okay.
After everything happens and they show back up to the present time and just Kirk's like expression and he's just so over like everything. He doesn't even want to talk about it. I like that. I can't like the whole episode kind of comes to that point where it's like, man, this actually like really took a lot out of like Kirk.
Yeah.
And it wasn't good this episode.
I agree. Yeah. Does add pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Pretty heavy. Good. Well, go down to the comment section and write what you thought of the episode. Did you feel that Edith Keeler had to die?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So do that. Next week, we are covering the season 1 finale of Star Trek. The episode entitled Operation Annihilate.
Ooh. Exterminate.
And Caleb will see a return of a character that he will not expect to see.
Nice.
Excellent.
Perfect.
So if you like the episode, like it. If you disliked it, dislike it. Share it with all your friends and family and Trek enthusiasts. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and ring that bell for notifications so that you can watch it when it comes out or catch into the other videos on the channel. As always, you can go over to Caleb's channel, watch all of his cool stuff. I think when this comes out, I think a couple days ago,
Yep. Sunday.
our Dragon Ball on Sunday, our Dragon Ball podcast came out on his channel.
Yeah. That's a good one. We finish
This is a good one.
we finish another saga. So we wrap up Saga 3.
Yeah, and you get to watch me do some stuff at the end of that video.
Yeah, I get to torture Will with questions like he does me. It's all fun. It's all in good fun. You know?
Yeah. It's a good time. It's fun. We talk about a lot of the same stuff, and we get down the same. We just like we take an old '60s show and pick at the pieces. We go and watch an old '80s cartoon and pick at the pieces. So
yeah, but we do 6 episodes. None of this 1 episode a week crap.
And that's because they're 21 minutes long,
and there's 6,000 of them.
I forgot to make the comment. This will be nobody's listening to at this point. But the thing that I wanted to mention was that the Guardian of Forever is Kang. He's the one. He's the one preserving the sacred timeline. And he's like, no, your friend McCoy has altered everything.
Yeah, right. That makes sense. All right, computer and program.
See you guys. The Retrek Review is a Daystrom Holodeck podcast produced in association with the Plastic Underground Props. Hosted by Caleb Stoddard and Will Wilbur. Edited by Will Wilbur. Our intro song is by Kaylee Joy Rookledge. Our theme song is by Samo Studios. And our outro song is by Tommy T. Title card art created by Caleb Stoddard. Trophy art created by Adri Wilbur of Love by the Letters. Synopsis and written plot provided by memory-alpha.fandom.com. Star Trek is created by Gene Roddenberry, and all official clips and pictures are owned by Paramount Pictures. You can follow us at the Plastic Underground Props and the Daystrom Holodeck on Instagram and on YouTube. Thanks for watching.